Hey guys, it's the Garcia Goats. I'm Alex Zelaya, your host, and we're joined by my co-host, Beckett Wilson.
What's up?
Yes, it's that Beckett Wilson. We'll also be joined by our guest speaker, Mateo Cisneros.
What's up, guys?
And we'll be talking about a super important topic, the loss of innocence.
Yeah, and when we say the loss of innocence, I don't just mean growing up. I mean when life hits you with no stuff kids should have to deal with. But that's betrayal, neglect, death, and abuse.
Exactly, Beckett. The reason we study in this literature is because it shows how people change when they face trauma. Today, we're focusing on characterization and how writers show who a character is through what they think, do, and feel, such as in The Moths and A Thousand Splendid Suns.
So our big question of this podcast is, how do Viramontes and Husseini use characterization to show girls losing their innocence through trauma and hardship?
And we'll focus on two amazing characters, the narrator in The Moths and Miriam in A Thousand Splendid Suns.
Say, Alec, can you tell me a little bit more about these two characters in The Moths and A Thousand Splendid Suns?
The narrator in Viramontes' The Moths is a tough, nameless 14-year-old girl who feels like an outsider in her own family. She feels very disconnected from the traditional femininity and finds profound spiritual connection while taking care of her abuelita.
And for Miriam, she's a young girl that lives in isolated Cuba, limited with opportunities and not allowed an education, yet she longs for one. She lives in the Cuba with her mother, Nana, and absent father, Jalil.
That's really cool learning about these characters, but do you mind telling me where or which story we're going to start with first?
We'll be starting with The Moths. The narrator is a young girl whose world feels small and harsh. Home isn't exactly a place that she feels safe or a place that she looks forward to going. School is frustrating, and she already feels disconnected from everyone.
Viramontes shows this through indirect characterization. We don't get a paragraph saying she's sad and lonely. Instead, we see her skipping school, fighting, and feeling out of place. Her actions reveal an inner turmoil within herself.
For example, when she rebels in small ways, as ignoring her mother, daydreaming, or wandering alone, it's not that she's just being difficult, but it's her way in handling neglect, her way of asserting some control in a world that feels unfair.
Then following that is her grandmother's death. This scene is tragic, while feeling very intimate and uncomfortable at some times. Washing the body, seeing the moths crawl out of her skin, makes her feel very uncomfortable. The scene is very crucial for her character development, while it's also gross and shocking, but it is very symbolic. Those moths represent decay, mortality, and the weight of life she's suddenly forced to face.
This is very eye-opening for her, as this is the exact moment her innocence ends and her adulthood begins. She is forced to confront death directly, which is something most kids her age don't go through very often. She responds to her death with empathy and care. Her characterization shows growth, losing innocence but gaining understanding.
And the setting definitely adds to that, as her home is meant to be safe, but it's rather full of tension and judgment from her older siblings. The only time the narrator can find her emotional safe zone is around her grandmother, or abuelita, and it's when she's given purpose. But when that's gone, she's left alone in the adult world, forced to process grief and responsibility far too soon for her age.
There are so many little details in every story that can contribute to her characterization. Her reflections on her mother, her sense of duty to the grandmother, her quiet anger, just all of it tells us who she is without even saying she's mature now.
By the end, the narrator's actions, her empathy, and her reflection that showed that her innocence isn't just gone. She's grown emotionally. Vera Montes uses characterization to make that loss feel personal and real, not just a plot point.
Guys, I think we need to go on a deeper dive. Let's go.
Beckett, what does that mean?
I think I know what he means.
We're gonna grab real scenarios and textual evidence from the short story.
That's really cool, Beckett. Do you have any of these textual evidence in mind?
I got you. A key quote from the short story, The Moths, that illustrates the narrator's loss of innocence and transition to adulthood is, "When I carried her in my arms, her body fell into a V, and yet my legs were tired, shaky. And I felt as if the distance between the bedroom and the bathroom was miles and years away."
I also found a really good textual quote. Quote, "The bathroom was filled with moths, and for the first time in a long time, I cried, rocking us, crying for her, for me, for Ama. The sobs emerging from the depths of anguish, the misery of feeling half-born, sobbing until finally the sobs rippled into circles, and circles of sadness and relief. This emotional moment marks a significant transition. The misery of feeling half-born implies a struggle with her incomplete identity, which is her tomboy versus the cultural expectations, which resolves as she fully embraces her role and grieves. The moths emerging symbolize the release of her grandmother's spirit and her own spiritual rebirth into a new, more mature phase of life."
Wow, the way Vera Montes is able to use such a simple thing, such as moths, to convey such strong emotions is really charismatic. The Moths must be some kind of award-winning story, right?
It actually isn't, but luckily we're going into an award-winning bestseller novel, A Thousand Splendid Suns.
Now, let's talk about Miriam. Her loss of innocence is harsher because it's tied to abuse, gender opposition, and war.
Hosseini uses characterization over time to show this. Miriam starts as a hopeful, obedient child who believes that her father loves her, but she quickly learns that adults aren't always protectors, and she's forced into a marriage with Rashid, which changes everything.
Unlike the narrator in The Moths, Miriam's trauma isn't just emotional, but it's also physical and social. Being labeled as a harami, living under constant fear, and being trapped in an abusive household that quickly takes her innocence away.
What does the word harami mean? Mateo, can you tell us?
Alec, did you even read the book? It's literally the first word. Anyways, the word harami means illegitimate child.
Of course I read the book. I just wanted to make sure the audience knew what it meant so that we could further explain the story. Going back to our analysis, Hosseini illustrates this through actions, reactions, and internal thoughts. Miriam obeys, suffers silently, adapts to survive. We feel her loss of innocence because we're inside her head.
Her moments of hope and small joys make the loss feel even more impactful. She wants to feel loved, respected, and safe, but the world keeps taking it away from her. Characterization shows the gap between what she believes and what she experiences, which is the essence of losing innocence.
Even small gestures like her growing patience, caution, or quiet defiance reveals how trauma has shaped her over her lifetime. The internal monologue helps us see how she understands the world differently than in her childhood.
By the end, Miriam has resilience and moral strength, but it comes at the cost of freedom and trust. Through characterization, we feel her growth and her suffering, not just her actions. Okay, goats, it's that time again. Let's dive deeper into the text of A Thousand Splendid Suns and find quotes and textual evidence.
Yay!
Our first quote is, "But he wasn't fast enough. Miriam saw. A gust of wind blew and parted the drooping branches of the weeping willow like a curtain. Miriam caught a glimpse of what was beneath the tree. the straight back chair overturned, the rope dropping from a high branch, and Nana dangling at the end of it. This amplifies the loss of innocence quite well. This textual evidence is very similar to the one in the mosque, as Miriam, a young girl, is forced to watch the death of her loved ones. However, in this quote, she has to bear the fact that her mother took her own life on her accord. And Miriam will have to live with that fact for the rest of her life, knowing that her mother did not love her enough to keep on living.
Here's another quote. She remembered Nana saying once that each snowflake was a sigh heaved by an aggrieved woman somewhere in the world, as a reminder of how women like us suffer, she'd say. How quietly we endure all that falls upon us. This memory surfaces after Miriam endures several miscarriages and abuse from her husband. Her initial hopes have been shattered by trauma, and this quote highlights her forced maturity and understanding of the quiet collective suffering of women in Kabul and in society, accepting endurance as a part of her life.
Guys, we almost forgot someone very important.
A bird?
A plane?
Superman?
No! Lila from part 2.
Whoa!
Okay, now let's talk about Lila. Her story is different from Miriam's, but her loss of innocence is just as intense. Lila starts out believing in education, love, and progress. She has dreams for her future and expects adults to protect her, like her parents. But war and tragedy shatter the world almost overnight.
Hosseini uses characterization to show this gradually. Lila's thoughts and reactions, especially after losing her parents in the rocket attack, reveal fear, grief, and shock. You can feel her hope slipping away, and that's a huge part of her innocence being lost.
Layla's characterization shows both emotional and social loss of innocence. She loses trust, security, and the freedom to imagine her future. But through her resilience, patience, and eventual moral courage, we see her growth despite the trauma.
Comparing Miriam and Lila is quite interesting. Miriam's innocence is more tied to emotional and social abuse, while Layla is also tied to external events like war. Both, however, are shown through thoughts, feelings, and responses rather than just the plot summary.
By the end, Miriam gains moral strength, and Lila regains hope and determination. Characterization allows Hosseini to show us the loss of innocence shapes their personalities and decisions, making us feel their struggles and not just hear about them.
So why do these stories matter together? Even though The Moths is a short story and 1,000 Splendid Suns is a long novel, both show that innocence is fragile, especially for girls in harsh environments.
Characterization makes it personal. We don't just see events happen, we see how the characters think, feel, and change, and that's what makes their losses so real.
And for us, it's relatable. We might not face extreme trauma, but we all understand moments of feeling isolated, misunderstood, or forced to grow up too fast.
These stories show that losing innocence can lead to growth, resilience, and empathy. It's painful, but it shapes who we become. I think we've all had either a moment or plenty of moments that have shaped us and are there for a reason to make us who we are today. So looking at both The Moths and 1,000 Splendid Suns, it's clear that losing innocence isn't just about getting older. It's about facing things no child should have to face, like grief, abuse, or war.
And what makes these stories so powerful is how their authors use characterization. We don't just see the events happen, we live through them with the narrator, Miriam, and Lila. Their thoughts, actions, and reactions show us how innocence is lost and what it costs them emotionally, morally, and socially.
These characters teach us that losing innocence can lead to growth. The narrator in The Moths gains empathy, Miriam gains moral strength, and Lila gains resilience and hope. But it's never that easy or simple. It's a process that the authors let us feel every step of it.
For us as listeners, as teens navigating our own lives, these stories remind us to appreciate our own innocence while it lasts, to empathize with others who've had it taken too soon, and to recognize how experiences shape who we become.
In the end, characterization doesn't just show the loss of innocence. It shows human resilience, understanding, and the ability to grow, even when life isn't fair.
That's why these stories matter. They're not just about pain or loss, they're about learning, adapting, and finding strength we didn't know we had.
And with that, thanks for listening. The goats are out. Bah!